To Russia now, where Vladimir Putin has been sworn in as president for another 6-year term. Putin took the oath of office in a ceremony at the Kremlin in Moscow amid great fanfare, but many Western countries boycotted the event because of the war in Ukraine. Putin won a landslide victory in a controversial election in March, without any genuine opposition candidate allowed to run against him. During his inauguration address, Putin said leading was, quote, a sacred duty, and he said the country would pass through this difficult period. All right, let's get more on this. I'm joined now by Roman Goncharenko from DW Russia. Roman, tell us, what was Putin's main message in his inauguration address?
Well, it was a short speech, and I would say that his main message was Russia is living through hard times, referring to the war Russia started against Ukraine, and but Russia is united and will win. He also had a message for the West. He said that Russia is open for dialogue, but only as equals. So it was not a very aggressive speech, but on the other hand, from the very first words, Putin referred to that war. He thanked the Russians who voted for him, supported him, and he also mentioned people living on our historic territories, lands, as he put it. So referring to people in Ukraine, but he didn't mention Ukraine specifically. So any former Soviet republic, for example, Belarus, which is already united with Russia, or Moldova or Georgia or others, could see that as a potential threat from Russia for future wars.
So looking ahead to Putin's new term, is it going to look any different to the last? I mean, will we see any new faces in his cabinet, for example?
Well, this is possible. So the cabinet resigned today. It's part of the tradition. We will probably hear the name of the new prime minister in the next hours or the next days. It could be the same, Mr. Mishustin, but there could also be some changes. There were speculations before Putin's inauguration that he might replace 1 or 2 ministers. It was not clear if the defense minister will remain, because he was criticized inside Russia as well, and there were reports that maybe Putin was not happy about how the war was going against Ukraine. But on the other hand, the defense minister, Mr. Shoigu, is one of Vladimir Putin's closest friends and allies, who has been with him for decades. So he could also stay in power. But in general, this term, of course, will be different, because the war is continuing, it's growing, and there is no sign of Russia wanting to end this war.
And presumably Ukraine will be one of the biggest challenges in the coming 6 years for Putin.
Definitely. So he will not stop. He made it very clear during his speech and his speeches before. So he is intending to win, as he said, and he will continue just as before. There were a lot of speculations if he could maybe call for another round of mobilization to increase the speed of this war and the scale. This is something that we have to watch in the coming days.
OK. Roman, stay with us. We're going to take a quick listen to the EU foreign policy chief, Josep Borrell, who was speaking just this morning about Putin's swearing in.
For me, the position was clear. It was going to be very difficult for the Ukrainians and for many people around the world to understand that we consider Putin someone invicted by the International Criminal Court, responsible for the war in Ukraine. The elections that we contest, because they were not free, neither fair elections, and then to attend the inauguration, it would be a clear contradiction. So my advice to the member states was not to attend, and I hope that many of them, most of them, will follow this indication. But each member state is fully sovereign to decide to go or not to go.
Josep Borrell there, clearly critical of Putin, critical of the election. I mean, there is little to no opposition left in Russia, isn't there? Most Kremlin critics are either dead or in prison. Is there anything left standing in Putin's way now as he enters this new term?
Well, it looks like he and his system are stable, but a war, such a big war, is always unpredictable. So even Putin cannot guarantee that in a few years nothing will change. So it's a stress test for the Russian society, for the Russian economy. Just to give you an example, the Russian energy giant Gazprom, the gas exporter, announced that it had net losses of billions of dollars last year for the first time in over 20 years. And Gazprom used to be the biggest donor of the Russian state budget. So Russia is able to wage this war against Ukraine thanks to Gazprom. And now the money that it has accumulated for years and years is running out. So we don't know for how long the money will last. But anyway, 6 years from now, the Russian economy will face some severe challenges. And of course, the war itself. The Russian society also has war fatigue, and Putin cannot know how it will react in a year or two.
Roman, thanks so much for that. That's DW's Roman Goncharenko.